A massive crowd erupts in cheers as the grand tournament begins. This world is ruled by the mystical painting arts that turn ink drawings into absolute reality. Countless legendary sects master unique brush styles to shape this dangerous martial forest. Two fierce warriors clash on the main stage as a smug combatant mocks his opponent. With a swift stroke of the brush, a deadly razor-sharp blade materializes instantly. Refusing to back down, the female warrior conjures a blazing symbol of pure fire. The challenger unleashes a lethal brush sword barrage to overwhelm her defenses. She counters instantly by activating her explosive bursting lotus technique. Their devastating clash unleashes a chaotic storm of fire and steel across the arena. The intense shockwaves rattle the temple walls, leaving the spectators completely speechless. A young servant watches in absolute awe as legendary techniques unfold before his very eyes. He secretly dreams of one day wielding a grand brush and standing on that magnificent stage himself. His daydreaming is shattered instantly by the furious roar of his demanding master. Bowing in apology, he quickly pours the tea and quietly laments his inability to stay focused. Nearby, the Grand Patriarch instructs his chosen heir to prepare for next year's tournament. The mighty leader Huang Haiyanbek demands absolute victory to preserve their family prestige. All eyes turn to the young master Huang Weiyun, who carries the heavy expectations of the entire Orthodox faction. The prestigious Dragon and Phoenix Assembly promises to showcase painting talents more brilliant than anyone else. Deep down, the young servant burns with envy, wishing he could freely share his own artistic soul with the world. Under the quiet moonlight, he secretly hoards dozens of brilliant ink drawings, waiting for their moment to shine. Studying his latest creations, he realizes his strokes lack the incredible pressure of the Grand Masters. An abrupt shout instantly shatters his concentration and forces him to quickly pack away his forbidden scrolls. He safely conceals his precious artwork behind a wooden cabinet before releasing a heavy sigh of relief. Stepping into the private library of the young master, his chore of cleaning the sacred halls officially begins. Gently polishing the legendary jade brush, he admires the ultimate treasure of the entire Huang clan. Holding the precious artifact triggers a forbidden desire to unleash its mystical ink on a blank canvas. Suddenly, a desperate cry echoes from outside the chambers, warning that time is rapidly running out. Recognizing the furious voice of the elder master, he creeps toward the door to secretly eavesdrop on the chaos. An angry teacher brutally tears down the young heir for creating a perfect imitation devoid of true soul. Bowing in shame, the young heir accepts the criticism while his regretful mentor quickly apologizes for losing his temper. Outside the chamber doors, the listening servant wonders what could possibly be wrong with such prestigious artwork. Driven by sheer curiosity, he waits for absolute silence before sliding open the heavy wooden doors to slip inside. Finding the majestic room completely abandoned, he creeps toward the desk to finally inspect the mysterious painting. A breathtaking landscape of crashing ocean waves and grand waterfalls showcases incredible mastery over the brush. Analyzing the beautiful composition, he detects a strange stiffness hidden beneath the seemingly perfect waves. He instantly recognizes the brushwork as standard techniques straight from the Huang family archives. Imitation serves as the basic foundation of learning, but true mastery requires a spark of individuality. This artwork merely mimics the manuals without injecting a single ounce of personal interpretation or soul. Tracing the lifeless lines, he quietly contemplates how he would have executed the stroke differently. An unexpected voice suddenly breaks the silence and freezes the young servant in absolute terror. Swirling around to see the young master himself, Mu Yang immediately drops to the floor, begging for mercy. Instead of delivering a swift punishment, the young heir demands a completely honest critique of his work. Trembling on the floor, the humble servant desperately tries to deflect the question to protect his life. Wei Young reminds him of their 10 years together and the many martial tournaments they both witnessed. The young master recalls how the servant always volunteered for duties that offered a perfect view of the arena. Those shining eyes and whispered secrets prove Mu Yang possessed a deep burning passion for the painting arts. The trembling servant realizes his lifelong passion has been completely exposed to his master this entire time. Bowing low to the floor, he musters the ultimate courage to declare that he cannot see the young master's soul in the art. Startled by the bold critique, the young heir listens as the servant explains that the painting lacks clear intention. He explains that even a single stroke of the brush on blank paper must carry a profound sense of purpose. Questioned about the value of technical perfection, the servant urges him to look far beyond mere flawless replication. True mastery only awakens when an artist infuses their own raw thoughts and emotions directly into the canvas. Realizing these profound insights belong to a true master, the heir wonders if the servant secretly paints as well. Mu Yang panics, instantly attempting to deny the accusation with desperate waves of his hands. A knowing smirk plays on the young master's face as he points out a fatal flaw in the servant's lie. Crushing weight of reality sets in as the terrified servant realizes his deepest secret has been completely exposed. Fearing for his life, he reluctantly reaches up to retrieve the forbidden scrolls hidden away in the shadows. He remembers the long nights spent gathering discarded ink and paper to practice the sacred arts in absolute secrecy. Tears stream down his face as he prepares to face the ultimate punishment for his forbidden passion. With a heavy heart, the humble servant lays out his secret creations directly before the young master. Each canvas reveals striking strokes of ink depicting mystical beasts and raw, untamed emotions. The young heir closely examines the rough sketches, recognizing a solid foundation beneath the unpolished lines. Uncovering these works reveals a completely unique style never before seen within the prestigious Orthodox sects. Staring down at his loyal servant, the young master quietly asks what truly drove him to paint all this time. Mu Yang hesitates as he prepares to speak his ultimate truth. Bowing low, he boldly declares his dream of becoming a master of the painting forest. The young master stares back in mild surprise, wondering what drives this forbidden ambition. The servant recalls the day he first arrived as a slave and witnessed the grand tournament. To his young eyes, those legendary artists were freely unleashing their souls upon the world. In that spectacular moment, a bright spark of creative passion bloomed deep within his chest. Though his life as a servant was comfortable, he hated repeating a path already chosen for him. He wanted to leave his own permanent mark on this vast world and carve real meaning into his life. A heavy silence fills the chamber as the young heir contemplates this profound confession. Breaking the quiet tension, the master calls his name, prompting a nervous response from the servant. Wai Young admits the forbidden paintings deserve severe punishment but confesses they spark a brilliant new inspiration. The young master delivers a shocking proposition, demanding that the servant continue painting in secret. A legendary promise of ultimate freedom is offered in exchange for helping him secure the Grand Patriarch throne. Overwhelmed by the life-changing proposal, the young servant can barely process the reality of this golden offer. Quiet determination settles between the two allies as they solidify their fateful new partnership. Deep within his soul, a sudden surge of raw confidence ignites a burning belief in his own destiny. He proclaims his grand artistic dreams to the heavens, only to be quickly reminded to keep his voice down. Under the cover of secret nights, the duo begins an intense training regimen to refine the raw talents of the servant. Journeying deep into the wild mountains, they search for raw natural landscapes to elevate their artistic vision. Atop a majestic cliffside, the servant eagerly demonstrates his unique understanding of natural essence. Seasons transition gracefully as the bond between master and servant deepens through countless hours of hard work. Exhausted from endless practice, the sleeping servant is gently covered as the young master watches over his progress. Under the guidance of his master, the young servant refines his touch to create a masterpiece of pure spirit. The young master carefully inspects the results, realizing they have finally unlocked a realm of legendary skill. For long years pass in absolute secrecy as their hidden training pushes both of them to their physical limits. The Grand Patriarch declares that the upcoming demonstration will decide if the young master keeps his rightful title. Tension fills the entire arena as prestigious masters and anxious observers gather to watch the fateful performance. Sitting among the crowd, the loyal servant clutches his hands in sheer anxiety for his master's fate. He wonders if his own secret creations actually helped the young heir break through his creative limitations. Stepping onto the stage, the young master unleashes a torrent of pure energy that glows with mystical light. He grips the massive brush with total authority, preparing to unveil a brand new style of martial painting. With a sudden explosive movement, he sweeps the giant artifact across the air, leaving brilliant blue trails. Massive waves of swirling energy erupt across the arena, leaving every single master in absolute disbelief. The Grand Patriarch stands in absolute awe at the breathtaking display of pure artistic mastery. Praising the young master's talent, the Patriarch highly commends the trembling elder for his legendary guidance. Watching from the shadows, the young servant stares in utter disbelief as a familiar vision unfolds before his eyes. The spectacular strokes flow across the canvas, perfectly replicating his own secret techniques of the clouds and waves. A chilling realization strikes his heart as he recognizes every single masterpiece as his own secret creation. The Grand Patriarch demands to know the source of this brilliant inspiration that has completely captivated the arena. Bowing with false humility, the young heir boldly claims these unique masterpieces as his own original creations. Left alone in a void of silent betrayal, the young servant feels the crushing weight of a promise utterly shattered. Night falls over the grand estate as a heavy darkness settles upon the heart of the betrayed artist. Tossing and turning in his lonely bed, he finds himself completely unable to escape the painful thoughts keeping him awake. The bitter realization sets in that his master did not just seek inspiration but shamelessly stole his entire art style. Deep in the quiet night, he questions how a promised path to freedom could turn into such a cruel betrayal. Those stolen paintings are not mere ink on paper but the very essence of his soul and identity. A fierce resolve burns in his eyes as he swears he will never let anyone steal his own creations. Refusing to stay silent, he leaps from his bed and reaches for the heavy door to confront his master. An ominous shadow greets him as he finds the young master waiting outside with a cold expression. Before a single word can be spoken, a guard draws a gleaming sword and points it directly at his throat. With a hypocritical sigh, the cruel master mockingly laments that his most cherished servant has committed a grave crime. He ruthlessly spins the truth to frame the innocent artist for attempting to steal the prestigious family art. A merciless death sentence is declared, leaving the betrayed servant staring at his grim fate. Wei Young delivers a chilling decree of immediate execution to silence his loyal servant forever. A ruthless guard leaps forward on command, aiming a deadly blade to carry out the sentence. A swift strike cuts deep across the face of Mu Yang, drawing fresh blood in an instant. Falling backward onto the cold floor, the betrayed servant demands to know the meaning of this false accusation. The cold master dismisses his desperate cries as a guard tosses his secret scrolls onto the ground. Wei Young mockingly claims the slave committed a taboo by copying the official art of the clan leader. Clutching his bleeding face, the wounded artist can only stare in absolute horror at the sheer insolence of his master. A flood of bitter memories returns as Mu Yang realizes every single interaction with Huang Wei was a calculated lie. He remembers how his master spent years studying his raw genius only to extract his soul and discard him. It was all a cold manipulation designed to secure the absolute throne of the prestigious Huang clan. The sickening truth finally clicks inside his mind, leaving a trail of blood and shattered trust. Staring at his scattered creations, he desperately declares these beautiful paintings are his own life work. With blood dripping from his eye, he screams that even the clan leader cannot steal what belongs to his soul. The heartless master looks down with chilling eyes, calling his loyal friend shameless to the bitter end. A furious guard lunges forward with his blade to silence the betrayed servant once and for all. Acting on pure survival instinct, Mu Yang grabs a bottle of heavy black ink and hurls it straight into the enemy face. Blinding pain erupts as the thick liquid covers the guard vision and halts his deadly assault. Snatching his trusted painting brush, the wounded artist bolsters his resolve and dashes desperately toward the exit. Shattering the wooden frame, he leaps wildly through the window and crashes onto the hard tiles below. Dragging his battered body to the edge of the high balcony, he gazes down at the dizzying drop beneath him. Cruel steel flashes through the air as the relentless pursuers corner him against the sky and demand his surrender. Overcoming his paralyzing fear, the young artist grips the edge and prepares to take the ultimate leap of faith. Plummeting into the deep abyss below, he chooses a dangerous fall over a dishonorable death at the hands of tyrants. Shattering the quiet night, the falling artist crashes violently against the lower roof tiles as his pursuers scramble to find him. Agony flares through his shattered shoulder, but the desperate survivor forces his bleeding body to stand. With a final scream of sheer determination, he pushes past the blinding pain and rushes toward the dark horizon. From the high balcony, the treacherous master watches his injured prey flee into the dark shadows with a cold gaze. Escaping the clan grounds, the wounded painter plunges deep into the safety of the dense mountain forest. A hidden root snags his bare foot, sending him tumbling helplessly down a steep and treacherous rocky slope. The brutal impact knocks the wind from his chest, causing him to cough up blood on the cold forest floor. Shouts of the approaching search party echo through the dark woods, signaling that his hunters are closing in. Refusing to let his life end in vain, he drags his broken limbs forward into the dark night, hoping to survive. Desperately seeking any escape route, he runs until he finds himself cornered at a sheer cliff overlooking a roaring river. The ruthless guards catch up to him and mock his futile struggle with twisted smiles. They cross their cold blades to force his surrender as the battered artist barely clings to consciousness. His trusted painting brush slips from his trembling hand and clatters onto the stony ground. Closing his eyes in absolute exhaustion, his mind drifts back to the peaceful days of his early training. Deep in the quiet mountains, a wise mentor instructs him to breathe deeply and focus his inner energy. She teaches him to channel that raw spiritual power from his core straight into his arm. Directing the flow to his fingertips, he unleashes his spirit and brings a magnificent ink bird to life. Years ago, the innocent servant rejoiced with pure joy as he successfully brought his very first ink bird to life. He poured his heart out in gratitude, unaware that his master only viewed him as a tool to steal legendary power. Back in the cold reality of the present, the bleeding survivor deeply regrets ever trusting his treacherous master. Gripping his bloody brush with absolute defiance, he forces the arrogant pursuers to halt in complete confusion. A ruthless guard mocks his weak spirit brush, believing a mere tool for practice cannot save him from death. Raw energy surges through his battered body as he prepares to unleash his ultimate counterattack. A colossal tree of dark ink erupts from the stony ground, leaving the shocked hunters completely paralyzed with fear. With a mighty roar, he unleashes a storm of razor-sharp branches to tear through his enemies and secure his escape. The hunters gasp in sheer panic as they realize their swords are completely useless against his sudden burst of power. Feeling deeply humiliated, one of the guards quickly draws his own spiritual brush to unleash a counterattack. Blinding blue energy erupts from the artifact, sending a barrage of razor-sharp crescent waves flying forward. A violent strike slashes across the wounded artist, sending fresh blood splattering into the cold air. Straining his eyes, he quickly analyzes the blinding starlight technique designed to completely disorient its prey. Predicting their sudden charge, the clever survivor drags his brush along the dirt to channel a hidden current. A massive tidal wave of thick black ink surges from the ground and violently sweeps the overconfident hunter away. The helpless attacker screams in terror as he plummets off the steep cliff into the dark abyss below. Before the young artist can celebrate, a sudden realization hits just as the second guard ambushes him from behind. The guard looms over the fallen artist, accusing him of murdering a member of the prestigious Wong clan. Infuriated by the loss of his partner, the ruthless warrior prepares to savage the boy's right shoulder. Desperately trying to summon his spirit energy, Mu Yang struggles to lift his brush before a sudden strike hits. Agonizing pain rips through his body as he is brutally slammed down onto the cold earth with a horrific scream. Standing over his bleeding prey, the mercenary mocks the young artist for recklessly exhausting his physical limits. Staring at the dark sky, Mu Yang realizes with absolute dread that his internal energy is completely depleted. Without an ounce of mercy, the relentless guard drags the battered young man toward the edge of the sheer cliff. Admiring his incredible resilience for a brief moment, the killer remarks that a slave talent has gone to waste. Surrounded by death and covered in blood, the defiant young painter suddenly bursts into a chilling fit of laughter. Mocking his executioners, he boldly offers to spare the guard life in exchange for becoming his very first disciple. A dark shadow of pure fury washes over the hunter face as the insolent offer completely shatters his patience. Blinded by pure rage, the relentless mercenary leaps forward with his blade to tear the boy to shreds. Using the last of his physical strength, the fallen artist delivers a devastating kick straight to his enemy face. Shattering the killer momentum, Mu Yang mockingly reminds him to never let his guard down in a battle for survival. Desperate for survival, the falling guard grips the boy's ankle, dragging him into the dark abyss. Plummeting off the steep cliff side, the young painter vanishes into the roaring river below as darkness takes him. Morning light washes over the quiet valley as the battered survivor washes ashore, gasping desperately for air. Wounded and completely exhausted, he barely clings to life, struggling to break free from his heavy restraints. A mysterious shadow suddenly looms over his broken body as an unknown stranger finally tracks him down. A tranquil river flows peacefully through the majestic mountain pass as morning begins to break. Mu Yang violently coughs up river water as he desperately clings to his fading consciousness. A towering silhouette suddenly looms over the broken young man lying bound on the rocky shore. The mysterious traveler chuckles while slowly pulling his wet fishing rope from the rushing waters. Loud splashing noises from a nearby bamboo basket quickly capture the blind stranger's attention. The blindfolded fisherman happily boasts about catching a massive prize on this lucky morning. Dreaming of a delicious hot meal, the traveler suddenly trips over an unexpected obstacle. Using his wooden walking cane, the curious man gently pokes the mysterious wet bundle on the ground. Mu Yang's sudden whisper sends the startled fisherman flying backward in absolute terror. Barely clinging to life, the starved artist weakly begs the bizarre stranger for a bite of food. The blind traveler snaps in annoyance, refusing to share his food with a total stranger. Barely breathing, Mu Yang promises a tenfold reward and vows he cannot die before completing his ultimate revenge. Hearing the dark mention of revenge, the blind man panics as the exhausted painter suddenly loses consciousness. The scent of delicious roasted fish eventually drifts through the quiet air to rouse the sleeping warrior. Holding a freshly cooked fish, the blind healer wonders if the savory aroma will be enough to wake his patient. Slowly opening his eyes, Mu Yang startles his savior, who was patiently waiting by his bedside. The traveler explains he patched up the wounds but warns the weak survivor that he must eat to recover. Staring blankly at the meal, the helpless painter admits his broken arms are far too weak to feed himself. Outraged by the demanding request, the grumpy savior complains loudly before reluctantly agreeing to help. Without any gentleness, the blind man shoves the roasted fish straight into the dry mouth of his patient. Tears stream down his face as he greedily devours the life-saving meal with quiet gratitude. The blind healer asks if the heavily bandaged survivor suffered a terrible injustice from the notorious Huang clan. Devouring his food with tears in his eyes, the injured painter confirms his bitter hatred with a silent nod. A dark realization strikes the blind savior as he reveals his own grudge against the family that stole his sight. Sitting in his secluded mountain cabin, the mysterious blind man demands to hear the full extent of the enemy's latest sins. Learning of the stolen painting technique, the healer explodes in a sudden fit of absolute rage. He curses the corrupt masters who claim to lead orthodox factions yet secretly steal from their own loyal servants. Taking a deep drink, the blind warrior explains that the prestigious clan has been rotten to the core for countless years. Stomping the floor in pure frustration, he recalls a legendary tournament from 19 years ago that could have crushed them. Mu Yang instantly recognizes the grand arena where the absolute best orthodox and unorthodox martial artists clash in battle. Unleashing his pride, he boasts that none of those hypocritical geniuses back then could match his supreme artistic power. Mu Yang looks at his savior with deep curiosity and politely asks for the legendary master's true identity. The old healer chuckles softly as he prepares to reveal his renowned title from his glory days in the martial world. With absolute pride, he announces his grand and terrifying alias as the Limitless Heaven Destroyer. Their silence abruptly shatters when Mu Yang admits he has never heard of such a name, earning him a swift blow. Rubbing his head, the young painter quickly apologizes as the furious healer screams that his name is famous across the land. Calming down, the blind master explains how his life changed during a legendary tournament against the corrupt Huang clan. During their intense duel, the vile enemy unleashed a forbidden sorcery to permanently seal his inner spiritual energy. To make matters worse, the ruthless opponent went even further by completely stealing his sight in that tragic battle. The young artist gasps in absolute fury, realizing the sheer cruelty of destroying an artist's life with underhanded methods. Protesting proved completely useless since the powerful clan simply dismissed it as a mere dual accident. He grins with bitter resentment, mocking the harsh reality where the powerful dictate what is right and wrong in the world. A painful memory flashes back to the moment the corrupt guards falsely accused the young healer of stealing their arts. They claimed he shamelessly copied the unique painting style of their young master, displaying ultimate audacity. Trembling with absolute rage, the wounded artist tightly clenches his bandaged fist. Chortling softly, the old healer takes another deep drink of his alcohol. Mu Yang instantly interrupts the old man, declaring that someone must finally stand up and fight back. Dropping heavily to his knees, the determined young man shocks his savior with an unexpected gesture. Bowing deeply, the desperate painter begs the legendary hero to accept him as his very first disciple. Swearing a solemn oath, he promises to completely destroy the corrupt Huang clan and reclaim his stolen honor. The skeptical master frowns and demands to know how a weak boy plans to accomplish such an impossible task. His grand strategy is to enter the upcoming tournament and crush the proud young leader of their enemies. Acknowledging that resolve without power is utterly useless, he begs for the legendary master guidance. Quiet tension fills the room before the old healer suddenly bursts into a fit of mocking laughter. With a dismissive wave, he coldly tells the injured boy to leave while he goes to chop wood. Utter despair washes over the young artist as the old man notes that their enemy has never tasted defeat. The old master warns that the enemy possesses the finest spiritual pills and absolute advantages in the martial world. He demands the young painter abandon all thoughts of vengeance against such an overwhelmingly powerful opponent. Dropping to his knees once more, the stubborn survivor desperately begs the legendary warrior for guidance. Irritated by the stubbornness, the old master snaps that surviving his ordeal should be more than enough for a slave. Slamming his head against the wooden floor in absolute defiance, the young artist refuses to lead a cowardly life. Reclaiming the sacred art stolen by his bitter rival becomes his sole purpose in this cruel world. Grimly staring down the boy, the blind healer warns that a reckless path of vengeance will only lead to an early grave. Tightly clenching his bandaged fist, the defiant painter refuses to swallow his burning resentment in silence. A fierce determination burns in his eyes as he declares his willingness to fight to the absolute end and die trying. An extraordinary surge of golden spiritual pressure suddenly erupts from the boy to shake the entire room. Sensing the raw authority of this strange power, the shocked master wonders what hidden potential the boy truly holds. Stepping closer to the kneeling young man, the old healer carefully examines his heavily bandaged shoulders. The master instantly recognizes a pierced right shoulder and a completely dislocated left joint. With a sudden warning to bear the pain, he brutally snaps the bones back into place with a sickening crack. Screaming in agony, Muyang demands to know why his savior is being so rough with his fragile body. The grumpy healer snaps back, pointing out that a broken body cannot achieve vengeance without recovery first. Under the bright glow of the full moon, the legendary master begins transferring his warm spiritual energy. Utterly exhausted, the broken painter quickly falls asleep as the healing currents flow through his body. A strange phenomenon occurs when the energy meant for his limbs gets pulled directly up toward his head. The shocked master senses that the boy body is desperately craving and devouring every ounce of his power. Morning sunbeams slice through the wooden window grates as a brand new day of destiny begins for the young artist. Full of burning passion, Muyang confidently declares he is ready to begin his legendary training. A swift wooden staff strike instantly silences the boy as the grumpy master reminds him he is not a disciple yet. Tossing a mysterious object through the air, the blind warrior commands his eager guest to catch it. Staring in complete awe, the young painter recognizes the floating tool as a legendary spirit painting brush. Skeptical of his visitor, the legendary hero wants to see if this resolve is real or just a hollow promise. Reaching for his waist, the old warrior announces that achieving a true miracle requires both genius and grit. Holding up a heavy gourd, the healer presents a simple challenge to smash the container right out of his hand. Confused by the apparently easy task, the young artist wonders if breaking a simple bottle is truly all it takes. The old master chuckles, warning that overcoming a 20-year gap in spiritual energy is virtually impossible. Tilting his head back, the legendary destroyer prepares to chug the entire contents of his favorite drink. He flashes a smug grin, revealing that the time limit for this trial ends the moment his bottle is completely empty. Unleashing his spiritual power, Muyang strikes instantly with a fierce technique to shatter the master defense. Anxiously, he watches to see if his rapid assault can overcome the incredible master of the martial world. The arrogant blind master pops the cork off his gourd and mockingly declares that the trial ends when his drink is gone. Launching forward with incredible speed, the young warrior thrusts his spirit brush like a deadly wooden spear. Evading the sudden assault with ease, the blind healer laughs at the boy's aggressive disregard for traditional etiquette. Black ink waves split to attack from both sides as the master recognizes the refined style of the corrupt enemy clan. Predicting the trap, the legendary warrior blocks his path while Muyang unleashes a furious strike straight at the bottle. Cackling wildly, the blind destroyer mocks the young challenger for thinking his lack of sight would make him an easy target. Counting every effortless gulp, the godlike master evades each blow, leaving the boy to wonder if his savior is actually blind. Muyang realizes the old warrior has absolutely no reason to lie about his permanent blindness. The young painter deduces that the master must be using an extraordinary sensory substitute to replace his lost sight. The blind warrior easily anticipated the ink stream, blocking his retreat without even turning his head to look. An intense focus on his hearing seems like the only logical explanation for such peerless evasion skills. Muyang quickly pivots to execute a silent technique known as the wind flow needles. He gathers wind-type painting energy to sharpen the invisible currents into deadly points just before reaching his target. A ferocious burst of kinetic force aims directly for the heavy gourd bottle in a single decisive strike. Pure shock paralyzes the young artist as his clever surprise attack completely fails to touch the legendary master. Swirling the near-empty container, the old destroyer mockingly laments that his favorite drink is almost completely gone. Frustrated beyond belief, Mu Yang charges forward again, screaming about the impossible dodging skills of his master. A wild theory strikes his mind that the blind master can somehow see the actual shape of his painting energy. Though he cannot explain the mystery yet, the young painter is convinced this is the secret to those godlike reactions. Grinning wildly, the determined young fighter prepares to launch another furious assault to test his theory. Golden spiritual sparks crackle violently across his fingers as he channels raw energy directly into his brush. A sudden devastating impact strikes the boy's forehead, spitting fresh blood from his mouth in utter shock. Crashing heavily onto the dusty ground, the exhausted painter groans in complete frustration after another defeat. The blind master smiles mockingly as he points out that none of the boy's current martial skills are truly impressive. He cold-heartedly declares that the boy's peak condition has already been restored and this is simply his ultimate limit. Refusing to accept his apparent boundaries, the clever young warrior silently reaches down to grab a heavy stone. With a sudden explosive burst of speed, he hurls the regular rock directly toward his opponent target. The thrown projectile strikes the heavy gourd container with a sharp metallic clink, catching the old man off guard. An ecstatic grin spreads across the boy's face as he realizes his theory about the blind master's senses was correct. Every single attack the old destroyer countered previously was a specialized painting technique cast with a brush. Confident in his discovery, the bold painter lunges forward to overwhelm the legendary warrior in close combat. Two powerful hands instantly intercept his desperate strike to lock his wrists in a flawless crushing grip. A chilling warning escapes the old master's lips as he easily shuts down the desperate strategy. A brutal strike sends Mu Yang flying back as blood erupts from his lungs. Crashing into the dirt, the injured painter listens to his opponent explain the mystical secret of the mind's eye. Glowing red eyes pierce through the darkness to trace every single pathway of flowing internal power inside the boy. An overwhelming wave of shock paralyzes the young artist as he realizes his every movement is completely exposed. The wise master warns that channeling any more painting energy will result in a fatal chi deviation. Fresh blood stains the legendary brush, but the unyielding painter vows to fight until his very last breath. Massive pillars of stone violently erupt from the ground under the command of the rising rock strike. Leaping high to avoid the earth-shattering assault, the master watches the desperate boy prepare one final technique. A colossal deluge of ink cascades from the heavens as the destructive explosive water strike threatens to swallow the world. Landing gracefully on a stone, the blind warrior easily evades the apparently predictable deluge of dark ink. Deciding to end the trial before the reckless boy gets killed, the master raises his gourd for the final gulp. A sudden black surge erupts from the ground to intercept his hand, catching the legendary master completely off guard. The residual foam of the failed water strike begins rapidly transforming into an entirely different shape on the dirt. Wiping fresh blood from his mouth, the clever artist proudly reveals his own original custom technique. Sharp spires of ink violently erupt toward the sky like a forest of deadly black spears. The unstoppable wooden lances pierce the heavy container, shattering his precious target into tiny pieces. By fusing two separate martial concepts into one fluid strike, the genius boy has rewritten the rules of creation. A broad smile spreads across the old savior's face as he admits the young rebel might truly be a natural-born genius. The celebratory moment vanishes instantly as the exhausted painter collapses onto the wooden deck, screaming in agony. Bloody channels of overloaded spiritual energy fracture across his skull as a devastating chi deviation strikes his body. Sprinting forward, the master desperately presses his hand to the boy's chest to halt the rampaging painting energy. Suddenly, a terrifying spiritual vortex drags the blind master consciousness deep into a mysterious dark void. Countless ink tendrils bind his body as they ruthlessly drain the legendary warrior's internal energy. The master remembers the previous anomaly and realizes he has entered the boy's supreme upper energy center. Refusing to yield, the old master unleashes a burst of power to shatter the persistent dark restraints. Clasping his hands, the warrior decides to test the true spiritual caliber of this incredibly unique painter. A colossal explosion of crimson spiritual power erupts as the ultimate trial of raw willpower begins. The blind master sighs deeply as he observes the absolute chaos inside the boy's spiritual realm. A violent storm of dark painting energy swirls wildly through the endless void of the mind. The rampaging chi deviation threatens to tear the young artist's consciousness to shreds. Yet the old hero cannot help but marvel at the incredible imagination required to birth such techniques. Cracking his knuckles with a grin, he decides it is time to tidy up this mental battlefield. Standing before the swirling darkness, he looks at the spectacular mess with growing excitement. Unraveling this tangled web of power could unlock a level of art the world has never seen. He channels a brilliant pink aura, preparing to suppress the rampaging forces with absolute authority. To truly master this power, the boy must learn to bridge his upper mind with his lower energy reservoir. The master realizes the boy's tiny lower reservoir is completely overwhelmed by his massive upper energy center. Deciding to weaponize his own spiritual force, the legendary hero prepares to turn the tide. He slams his hands down, releasing a violent wave of crimson aura to strike the mental block. Giant constructs of spiritual energy pierce through the dark void to seize the rampaging forces. A wave of relief washes over him as his consciousness successfully synchronizes with the boy's chaotic willpower. Amused by the desperate struggle of the wild energy, the blind warrior easily maintains his absolute control. He channels his power directly upward to untangle the knotted willpower into separate threads of consciousness. The first chaotic vision manifests as a colossal dark tree bound tightly by a massive spiderweb. Brilliant pink light fractures the darkness as his spiritual energy forces its way through the obstruction. Sensing a sudden shift, the old hero worries that he might get dragged into the chaotic depths of this mind space. Pondering his next strategic move, the master wonders if he should target the largest masses of energy first. A colossal mountain range and swirling waves of ink materialize as he reaches deep into the vortex. The blind master suddenly groans in pain as the chaotic pathways of his own internal energy begin to twist violently. Forcing himself to calm down, he immediately executes a deep breathing technique to regulate his rampaging spiritual power. Centering his mind amidst the vast mental landscape, the legendary hero takes a slow deep breath to stabilize his core. Realizing that size and order are completely irrelevant, he looks deep into the swirling storm of chaos. The veteran warrior examines his own glowing energy reservoir, knowing the issue has nothing to do with raw power. He focuses entirely on the young artist's glowing upper energy center, where every single cause and effect is deeply rooted. A vision of the bloody but smiling young artist appears alongside his original creation of jagged ink branches. A brilliant revelation strikes the master as he flashes a knowing grin and slams his open palm forward. Colossal hands of pink spiritual light erupt from his body as he realizes trying to separate these elements was a mistake. He understands that the tree, the spiderweb, the mountains, and the waves are all parts of one single magnificent painting. Realizing his mistake, the master understands that trying to separate these elements was entirely pointless. An incredible shock fills his mind as he discovers the sheer quantity of these masterpieces hidden inside the boy. A fierce grin stretches across the veteran face as he realizes this genius is far more than a simple fluke of talent. He challenges the endless void to unleash everything it has in one final magnificent demonstration of power. Gazing upward, the old warrior feels the vastness of this spiritual realm completely surrounding his consciousness. Giant walls of ink paint, towering mountains, and swirling clouds across the edge of his vision. Though the execution lacks refined technique, the master cannot help but admire the sheer brilliance of the concept. Within this chaotic realm, raw creative energy continues to paint new forms even while the boy rests. This incredible prodigy creates legendary art as naturally as a regular human takes a breath of fresh air. Slowly opening his heavy eyes, the exhausted young artist wakes up to the gentle chirping of birds at sunset. The blind master sits quietly nearby to welcome his student back to the physical world with a calm voice. Suddenly remembering the intense duel, the boy looks around in sheer panic for the fate of his target. With a subtle smirk, the legendary warrior holds up the broken rope of his shattered drinking container. Pure ecstasy fills the young painter as he realizes his reckless plan actually succeeded against all odds. The blind master calmly announces that the next phase of his grueling training has already begun. This new test of grit will continue relentlessly until the young painter can successfully defeat a powerful foe named Y. Without a single shred of hesitation, the determined young warrior proudly accepts the monumental challenge. Pleased with his response, the legendary master rises to reveal the first objective of their incoming journey. To safely control his massive upper mind energy, the young boy must rapidly expand his lower physical reservoir. Traditional cultivation methods would take a lifetime, so they must bypass the limits using a legendary spirit pill. The crucial search leads toward the Pavilion of 10,000 Echoes, where a powerful old ally holds the ultimate secret. With their grand destiny finally set in motion, the teacher and student prepare to depart at the very next dawn. Splashing refreshing river water over his face, the exhausted painter finally takes a moment to breathe. Clenching his fist with iron resolve, he vows to seize this golden opportunity to surpass his limits. Painful memories of his past cowardice flash through his mind, reminding him of the shame he once ran from. Grasping a sharp blade, the determined warrior binds his hair to signal the birth of a new man. Far away, a trembling messenger reports to his lord that the target perished after falling down a massive cliff. The cold master immediately demands to know how a mere subordinate managed to survive such a lethal drop. Stepping slowly toward his ornate throne, the ruthless leader refuses to believe in any death without a corpse. The ruthless leader paces back and forth across his grand hall, plotting his next move. He commands his subordinates to place a massive bounty on the young artist across the entire land. Meanwhile, the discarded robes of the boy's former life lie abandoned on the rocky ground. Having shed his past, the young warrior runs a hand through his freshly cut hair. Standing alone in the wilderness, he looks down at the remnants of his old cowardly self. The vindictive lord sneers as he declares that his target will never find safety. Little does he know the boy has already transformed into a completely different beast. Leaving his broken past behind on the dirt, he prepares to embrace his true destiny. He feels the cool mountain breeze on his neck as the final traces of fear vanish from his heart. Clutching his blade, the determined painter stands ready to face whatever hardships lie ahead. Back in the palace, the arrogant master vows that divine retribution is inevitable. But the boy's unwavering gaze proves he is ready to shatter the wrath of an entire clan. As a beautiful dawn breaks over the majestic peaks, their legendary journey officially begins. Approaching his student, the blind master asks if the new traveling attire fits him well. Fully equipped with his precious scrolls, the enthusiastic youth proudly boasts about his perfect fit. The blind master breathes a sigh of relief before channeling a sudden burst of crimson spiritual energy. With a swift step, he unleashes a powerful wave of light to scout the surrounding wilderness. Pointing toward their distant destination, the legendary warrior leads his student down the long winding trail. As they venture deeper into the rugged mountains, the treacherous terrain quickly becomes incredibly steep. Exhausted after only a short walk, the old master suddenly sits down and dramatically demands a carriage. The young painter stares in absolute disbelief at his teacher's sudden lack of physical endurance. Stomping his foot in frustration, the boy is forced to carry the lazy master up the dangerous cliffs. The old man happily sips his drink while loudly complaining about his student's slow and shaky pace. A sharp blow to the head sends them wobbling as the master demands the boy build up his pathetic stamina. The struggling young painter desperately scales the terrifying mountain face while carrying his demanding teacher. Both travelers finally crash onto the solid ground as the exhausted boy collapses from absolute fatigue. Instead of resting, the passionate youth immediately reaches for his bag to unpack his drawing tools. An incredible burst of artistic inspiration from the treacherous mountain climb drives him to paint. The legendary master stands in absolute shock, realizing his student possesses the perfect mind for this art. Before the boy can begin his work, the blind warrior suddenly grabs his wrist with blinding speed. The veteran master ruthlessly launches a flurry of swift strikes to test his student reflexes. With a swift flick of his wrist, the master disarms the boy, sending his precious brush flying through the air. Standing tall, the legendary mentor asks a vital question about the core of Murim combat. The confused apprentice ponders deeply, trying to guess the secret behind their unique fighting style. Without a word, the blind warrior executes a sudden physical movement to teach a brutal lesson. The blind master displays a sequence of incredibly swift and unpredictable movements to demonstrate his true power. He reveals the name of this legendary footwork, known as the brush-wielding step. This dynamic technique allows a martial artist to move fluidly while effortlessly executing brush techniques. Real combat requires preventing the enemy from executing their moves while defending against incoming strikes. Without mastering this footwork, a warrior will lose their weapon and perish on the battlefield without a fight. Ordered to assume the stance, the young painter struggles to find his balance as his stiff posture is corrected. Their rigorous training continues deep into the evening as the master demands absolute perfection. Under the cover of night, the exhausted student carries their heavy gear down a rugged mountain trail. Refusing to show any weakness, the stubborn boy ignores his trembling legs and vows to push past his limits. A mysterious figure lurking in the shadows watches their every move as they prepare to set up camp. Unaware of the lurking threat, the exhausted young artist begs for a moment of well-deserved rest. Sensing a sudden shift in the air, the blind master immediately detects a hidden murderous intent nearby. Instantly reacting to the danger, the veteran warrior blocks a deadly projectile right before his shocked student eyes. A group of arrogant highwaymen emerges from the darkness, demanding the travelers hand over all their belongings. The blind master instantly recognizes the thugs as a notorious local gang known as the Mountain Wolves. Instead of fighting, the master casually sits back to let his student gain some much-needed real combat experience. With an eager grin, the young painter readies his brush to unleash his newly acquired skills. Infuriated by the blatant disrespect, the thugs charge forward with deadly blades drawn. In an instant, a massive spear of sharp ink erupts from the ground to scatter the incoming attackers. Unorthodox fighters will always target a Murim artist brush, so mastering defensive footwork is absolutely vital. Executing the brush-wielding step, the young warrior moves with the grace of a dancing shadow. He effortlessly slips past a lethal slash and positions himself perfectly to strike back. A binding web of dark spiritual branches completely immobilizes the helpless bandit in a fraction of a second. Observing the flawless execution, the blind veteran silently marvels at his student's terrifying rate of growth. Still, the master demands even greater speed while a hidden observer watches the battle unfold from above. A shadow looms from above as a mysterious observer watches the chaotic battlefield unfold. An ambush from behind is instantly countered by a sudden surge of crushing ink branches. Proud of his quick reflex, the young apprentice eagerly turns to show off his victory to his teacher. The blind master scoffs at the easy win before sensing a far greater threat descending from the dark sky. A lethal strike suddenly pierces the night as a dangerous assassin drops from the moonlit clouds. Enshrouded in thick fog, the hostile warrior demands to know their business at the Manchuan pavilion. Refusing to back down, the travelers challenge the gatekeeper, who coldly warns them to turn back. In his reckless excitement, the young boy accidentally blurts out their secret quest to find the roster. Ignited with dark spiritual energy, the mysterious foe swings his massive brush to unleash a deadly storm. The legendary master recoils in absolute shock as he recognizes the familiar power behind the strike. Sensing the lethal danger, the young painter leaps back to dodge the legendary ink technique. The young painter instantly recognizes the devastating wind vortex slash from his past studies in the clan library. He loudly questions why an unorthodox warrior is using a sacred brush technique belonging to the orthodox faction. The hostile gatekeeper grits his teeth in pure fury as the boy words strike a painful nerve. He fiercely claims that the orthodox thieves stole this legendary ancestral manual from his own beloved clan. Swinging his weapon with murderous intent, the enraged warrior charges forward to silence the boy forever. Suddenly, a blinding shockwave erupts across the battlefield as a powerful figure descends to halt the deadly clash. Sensing the familiar presence nearby, the blind master speaks out in absolute astonishment. He gasps as he realizes the mysterious gatekeeper standing before them is none other than his old friend Jong Uk. The furious gatekeeper continues to mock the boy as his anger reaches a boiling point. He spits out accusations that the hypocritical Orthodox world has been living on stolen glory for generations. Gathering a massive surge of dark spiritual energy, he vows that neither of them will leave the mountain alive. Just as the fatal blow is about to land, a massive flash of light bursts to separate the fighters. The blind master can barely believe his senses as he calls out to his long-lost companion. Looking directly at the legendary figure, the old master addresses him by his true name. Deeply troubled, he wonders why the respected master of Manchuan Pavilion would ever guard this place in secret. Jong Uk scoffingly dismisses the accusations of playing bandit after being hidden away for 7 long years. With a furious roar, he unleashes the devastating earth-cleaving maple slash to obliterate the intruders. The young apprentice is completely overwhelmed by the blinding speed of the incoming shockwave. Suddenly, his exhausted leg muscles seize up in a painful cramp mid-movement. Realizing he overexerted his body during the climb, the helpless boy braces for what seems like certain death. With lightning-fast reflexes, the blind master swoops in and pulls his student out of harm's way. The legendary veteran easily intercepts the lethal dark strike with his bare hand using pure spiritual energy. The hostile gatekeeper watches in utter shock as his ultimate technique is neutralized without effort. He instantly recognizes the legendary flower grafting technique, proving the blind master has reached the primordial realm. The blind master calmly smiles and reassures his opponent that he has no intention of causing any harm. Zhang Yuke stands in sheer disbelief, realizing this apparent beggar has achieved such an incredibly high realm of power. The legendary master boastfully claims that a single stroke of his mighty brush could easily bring down the endless sky. Hearing that familiar dramatic boasting, the hostile gatekeeper instantly recognizes the true identity of his old friend. Taeyun offers a warm, friendly greeting to his long-lost companion after 7 long years of complete separation. Instead of a warm reunion, a devastating punch suddenly crashes directly into the legendary master's smiling face. Zhang Yuke roars in pure fury, demanding to know how this absolute bastard dares to show his face here again. Dodging the continuous onslaught, the master desperately tries to claim this must be a case of mistaken identity. The enraged warrior screams that every single letter of the name Gang Taeyun is forever burned deep into his mind. Sensing no actual murderous intent behind the heavy blows, the blind master realizes these strikes are driven by pure hurt. Deciding to let his old friend vent his deep resentment, the legendary warrior prepares to take a brutal beating. A devastating blow connects with full force, sending the legendary master crashing hard onto the cold dirt. As the panicked apprentice rushes forward to help his mentor, the fallen master strictly commands the boy to stay back. Grabbing his collar, the furious warrior shouts that his former friend never deserved the legendary title of Heaven Destroyer. Taeyun gently asks his old friend to explain the truth behind his immense suffering. The veteran master even offers his own body as a target to help soothe the agonizing pain of betrayal. Zhang Yuke squeezes his eyes shut as bitter frustration washes over his heart. A desperate cry of agony echoes through the dark forest as years of repressed anger finally boil over. Seeking shelter, the group gathers inside a secluded cabin hidden deep within the dark mountains. Settling around a wooden table, Zhang Yuke begins to reveal the dark history of the tyrannical Orthodox faction. He explains how the hypocritical leaders shamelessly stole legacies and ruthlessly wiped out entire rival families. Greedy forces soon targeted his organization, demanding complete control over his secretive intelligence network. When he courageously stood his ground, the corrupt leaders brutally stripped him of his title and banished him into exile. This cruel act stole a legendary family business built by his beloved ancestors over hundreds of glorious years. Hearing this tragic tale of injustice, the young painter jumps up in absolute disbelief at the sheer corruption. Refusing to surrender meekly, the proud warrior rallied dissatisfied martial artists to ignite a desperate rebellion. Tragedy struck as their brave uprising was completely crushed in a brutal defeat on the battlefield. With their forces shattered, they desperately needed a savior of supreme talent to guide them out of the darkness. But instead of leading them, the legendary genius mysteriously vanished, leaving behind no traces for 7 long years. Zhang Yuke bitterly declares that everyone in the martial world placed their absolute trust in the missing hero. He demands to know why his legendary friend chose to hide away like a coward for 7 long years. Taeyun calmly introduces Mu Yang as his very first disciple, whom he recently took under his wing. His ultimate goal is to enter the young painter into the prestigious assembly next year. This bold declaration leaves the exiled gatekeeper completely stunned by his old friend's audacity. Mocking their ignorance, the cynical warrior warns that the corrupt Orthodox faction will only humiliate them. Unbothered by the warning, the old master explains that the boy possesses immense dormant talent. Having lost his ancestral business, the broken warrior claims he has no useful information left. Met with a heavy silence, the legendary blind master slowly rises and decides to depart the cabin. Stepping outside, the young apprentice asks his teacher what their next move will be. Knowing his proud friend still holds a massive information network, the blind master refuses to coerce him. The legendary blind master stands in heavy silence, crushed by the painful weight of his failed past promises. Sensing his master's deep guilt, the young apprentice resolves to find a way to help rather than leave empty-handed. An ancient memory of his days reading forbidden scrolls in the Imperial Library suddenly sparks a brilliant idea. He recalls how the corrupt Orthodox leaders shamelessly stole the secret wind vortex slash from a proud rival clan. Stepping forward with absolute confidence, the boy requests a brief moment to speak with the exiled warrior. The young painter boldly declares a perfect plan to give the corrupt Orthodox faction a taste of their own medicine. He reveals his perfect photographic memory of every single secret manual stored within the sacred Imperial Library. By writing down the stolen techniques, they can use the massive intelligence network to return them to their rightful owners. The exiled gatekeeper scoffs in sheer disbelief, questioning how a mere boy could possibly memorize such legendary texts. Mu Yang casually asks for a brush to prove his incredible claims right then and there. A series of masterfully recreated wind vortex slash techniques instantly leaves the veteran warrior completely speechless. Jong Uk realizes the boy captured the exact principles and intent of the lost ancestral manual with ease. This miraculous restoration could easily breathe brand new life into the fading remnants of the unorthodox faction. The skeptical gatekeeper worries that distributing these sacred manuals will put his own life in grave danger. Vowing to reclaim his lost honor, the young painter prepares to crush the corrupt master who framed him. He humbly requests the legendary warrior to stand beside him and risk everything to wash away their shared injustice. Deeply shaken by those brave words, the exiled warrior recalls his own bitter feelings of abandonment over the years. He tightly clenches his fist in silent shame, realizing that he has simply been hiding away in fear. Exhaling a weary sigh, the exiled gatekeeper claims he has absolutely no information regarding the elixir. Mu Yang smiles warmly, declaring he wants to help others who have suffered the exact same agonizing pain. He confidently reasons that performing selfless acts of kindness will surely find their way back to him in the future. The exiled warrior stares back in complete silence, deeply moved by the pure and unyielding heart of the young painter. Witnessing the brave youth, he realizes he is looking at the true meaning of chivalry, which has long been lost to the world. Outside the cabin, the veteran master quietly reflects as he gazes deep into the vast and shadowy mountain landscape. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out from behind, catching the legendary hero completely off guard in the quiet night. The young apprentice grins widely as he happily announces that his old companion is finally ready to speak with them.